This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On Air.
Mind health was a really big focus, so giving people permission to talk about it from the top. So that was a leadership-led initiative. It started with our executive team sharing personal stories, which then laid the ground for others to be open. I really do think this is about weaving into your culture, how you do things, and the sponsorship from leadership is so key to this. Those two things have been important to hold on to for the sustainability of the work, because without those things, you're really just rolling out an initiative that won't last when, people move on, organisations evolve. But if it's woven into how we do things, then that can last beyond a moment in time.
Hello and welcome back to Making Work Better. I'm your host Denise Quinlan, and in this episode I talk with Sarah Stack, lead partner at People and Culture at Spark, New Zealand's largest telco and digital services company. Spark is an organisation that's getting serious about supporting wellbeing, connection and inclusion, not as buzzwords, but as strategic drivers. From co-designed mental health frameworks to training peer coaches, Spark is showing us what better work can really look like. Let's dive in. Sarah and I began by discussing how staff have been coping with the challenges of the past few years in workplaces around the world. Since COVID, workplaces generally have had more flexible working, uncertainty, anxiety, and burnout. So how has Spark fared over the past few years?
I just think about the question we have asked our people for the last 3 years now about how they're feeling. So during COVID, we made a point of asking people, how are you feeling generally? We have 3 simple responses. I'm either struggling, strained, or on my game. And during COVID, I think more than 60% of our people felt, either strained or they were really struggling. And over the last 3 years, that has improved with more of our people telling us they feel on their game. And despite that shifting, there's still been a number of challenges for people that they've faced personally. And I think something that seems to have shifted is we talk about things more around how people are going. That conversation has opened up and there's more connection in the work environment. There is, I think, more support from our leaders, and there's just more of a focus in our culture around care. And I think, that helps people know that, we've got you in the background, even when things are tough.
The list of challenges facing organisations is a really big one, but which challenges have been most important for Spark?
I think the most significant, we have our people strategy is very much centred around enabling our business to fuel innovation, and a key part of that is supporting our people to be well, building a place where people feel like they belong and they can be their best and that they have the right skills, to be here. So that's not one, I know, but they are kind of all linked together in order to propel us forward, to operate in the future. And we know that, if we don't get that right, then our people won't be ready or prepared, to do the things that we have set out to do.
So that's actually kind of an interesting package in that you're describing a culture, the culture where people can feel belonging, feel safe to do their best work, where their well-being is looked after and where they have the skills they need. So that's quite a range of stuff.
Yeah, it is. That is really our if we look at our people strategy, where we're going to focus our effort and energy. And the outcome of that is, people are prepared. They can cope with, the uncertainty and the new growth areas in our business that we want to go after. But we know that you can't do that without first looking at, how we create a good experience for people when they're here. And that's not just on, those most in need in terms of wellbeing. It's a system.
Yeah. I really like that what's coming out is that your job is to have people be prepared and feel supported, that it's the two sides. And tell us a little bit about what Spark is doing to address these challenges. And I know it doesn't have to be, we can think about the last 12 to 18 months, but go back further if you need to, because I know some of it may have started through COVID.
Yeah. So through COVID, we had a big inflection point when we knew that a number of people were struggling. I think our leadership team called that early and said, hey, look, if we're finding this hard, then think about our workforce and how everyone must be feeling. And what we did was we opened a conversation up with our people. So we asked them, what they wanted in terms of wellbeing and support. And what we heard really clearly is people wanted more access to tools and information in terms of how to be their best selves. They told us that our EAP service wasn't working, not in all cases, but it could have been better. It didn't quite, fit anymore in its current form. And that there was a real stigma attached with not feeling my best self.
Yeah.
So that was a really compelling, conversation to bring up. And then what it led to was some co-design. So we said, okay, well, what do we need to build a healthy and inclusive work environment? And yeah, the posters are behind me, but we've got, we developed a framework. So we looked at not only what our people had to share with us around wellbeing and what would help them thrive at work. We also looked to our specialist partners. So we have partnered with some psychologists who can give us some really good, research-backed thinking. And we also looked at, wellbeing models like Te Whare Tapa Whā. And then we created a framework for us to drive us in terms of building that work environment. So we ended up with 4 pillars to anchor us. And those 4, so we've got environment, so building, the environment where people belong and feel like they can be healthy. Connection, so that was very much centered around, especially during COVID, how we be careful at every moment as people were returning to buildings or being at home or struggling to virtually work, being really cognizant of that. Mind health was a really big focus, so giving people permission to talk about it from the top. So that was a leadership-led initiative. It started with our executive team sharing personal stories, which then laid the ground for others to be open. And then energy levels. So how do we think about I think that's very much part of the culture is the energy here and connection to our strategy, what we're trying to do for New Zealand, but also giving people tools when they need it. So we have some other partners in our ecosystem who have helped us with that.
So that's a combination, the energy one, is that a combination of connection to mission and purpose and really having that clear for people and the kind of practical tools that people need? Yeah.
So it is a really broad way to look at it. So it might be, one-to-one, what do you need to help with your performance, to, us putting energy behind, what we're here to do for New Zealand. And I think that's something that's already been, is strong in our organisation, but it's even stronger, I would say, now with the launch of our new strategy.
And so the four, there's environment, connection, energy,
mind.
And mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Really paying attention to how are people that mind health. Okay. Yes.
Mind health and that growth mindset. So we have talked a lot about what does that mean? What does it look like? And it's, interpretation can be different for many, but we've tried to share more stories and examples of that over the last few years to bring a shared context of, we all have a journey to go on with mind health in some way.
Yeah, and struggle is part of life. That sense of that just because you haven't hit a challenge yet doesn't mean you're somehow better than anybody else or invulnerable. You've just been lucky so far, in a sense. And so of the work that you've been doing, that's a huge amount of work and a big framework. What's the rollout been and what's been most successful?
Yeah, so the rollout over the last few years, firstly it began with the co-creation of a framework and sponsorship from our leadership team. So that I think is a really important place to begin any of this work.
Completely. I'm literally, as you're talking, I'm ticking off my list of burnout prevention factors, which include having a sense of autonomy, being involved in the co-design as that, having leadership modeling, A, support for it, and B, their own experience. It's huge before you go any further. Yeah.
And so absolutely the most important thing, the commitment from the leadership team is also the investment. So, we didn't do this off the corner of the desk. Spark backed our team to invest and partner with experts. So we haven't made it up. We've gone to experts to give us science-backed tools and information. And, if you think about our workforce, that's really important when you think about the people that we're, here to serve. So those partnerships have endured as well, where they haven't been, give us a framework. They've been with us from that, sort of a few years back. Mm-hmm. And so they have a really good shared context of how Spark works and the different, things that we're doing within Spark. So we have a large retail workforce. We have an operations workforce. That's so important for us to share.
So enduring partnerships with people who know you. Yeah.
Yeah.
The context.
So at the beginning, I think those things were key. And then where we've really focused at the beginning was those strong leadership communication, either through storytelling or written dialogue. So this was during COVID. It was really important to hear, I think, good comms that were personal in nature. They weren't just, sort of generic newsletters about, tick some things off for your wellbeing. It was very authentic language and dialogue from our leaders. We had then a real focus on checking in with people, not only through our leadership teams, but, the rest of our leaders in the business. So we tried to weave that into systems. We had a culture pulse tool. We tried to weave in wellbeing into that system from the early days, but also with our partnerships. And again, this was during COVID. We would listen to what our people wanted more support with and then meet them with some of that insight. So that was a lot of, things like webinars and providing tools early on. Mm-hmm.
Can I pause for a sec, Sarah? Because I'm really interested in this, because I think the listening is one of the really important things you've been doing. And you're talking about there's the pulse, so people can communicate directly. But was there also something around empowering managers to listen or to ask?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because that context was set, it opened up the landscape for leaders to have that conversation with their people. And it was in their pulse checking tool. So we used Joyous at the time. It has changed since. But our tools, even now, we've asked the same question about how people are doing, but also some more specific questions around, whether they have enough, tools and support, whether they feel connected, whether there was anything else that was missing for them as, things have evolved through the last few years.
And in terms of the leaders who were being asked to be part of this, or, to be involved in support and connection, was it equally easy for everyone, or were there some leaders that needed more support or tools themselves to kind of come up to speed?
Yeah, absolutely. We have around 600 leaders, so not everyone is comfortable opening up those kinds of conversations. So we have made it easier over time by giving people frameworks around, how to have those conversations with their people. We've provided some leader training and workshops, and some really simple tools like a checkpoint monitor, just to simplify, how do I notice how my people are doing, and then act on that if I need to. And that's been really, I think, great, because in terms of what we see, our latest culture results tell us 89% of our people feel supported by their leader. So that's one of our strongest,
That's huge. There must have been, I hope there was cheering in the building when that came in.
Yeah. No, it's the care, which has come from, our senior leaders, and that tone has been set, and it's powerful to see that play out. But there will always be people who aren't comfortable, and we make a point of, giving that support where we need to.
And I like that I like the range of support that you've described, because the people who aren't comfortable are often not comfortable because this feels amorphous, and how do I know? And you've given them, here are some things to look for. Here is a checklist of things. Here is a discussion. This is and it's like to take it from being huge and difficult and actually make it manageable for them, which I think is powerful. Now, I knocked you off track because you were saying, you talked about comms from leaders, and you were coming in to talk about the range of kind of tools and webinars that you had actually created. Tell us more about those.
So if I go back a few years through COVID, I think we asked people what they wanted more support with, and there were various issues around sort of mind health, managing energy, I think caring for others at home. The list went on, and so we got some of that insight, and then we picked some particular subjects that we would facilitate webinars and content on. We also over the last few years, we know that anxiety has been one of the top presenting issues for our people. As part of our wellbeing ecosystem, we partnered with Sarah Laurie. So Sarah has founded Take a Breath, a breathing-based app, which I think now around half of our workforce has downloaded. And that's giving people, again, the tools which people had asked for, but some really good sort of performance-based insight to help them. So it wasn't just one expert or partner that we leveraged. It was it was a range of people, and they were always sponsored by a leader who would open that with a story, and it became more of a, this is how we do things. We also, there were a couple of other key things that we did at that time. So not only education, sort of to everyone.
I'm going to just pause you for a second, girl. This, just that, like, I know it's almost like a throwaway comment for you, but it's actually huge and powerful that everyone that came in was sponsored by a leader. It's not like, here's a tool for those among you who aren't coping. It's, we know this is important, and I'm getting behind this, and I'm sharing a personal story. And it's not just the availability of the tool, it's the making it okay. And that's really powerful, because I think a lot of organizations bring tools in and they don't get good take-up because there's still stigma. So the providing the tools and the removing the stigma at the same time is really powerful, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think one of the other learnings with that, with organizations rolling things out, we did have a learning early on that, hey, we don't just want to be formulaic about rolling out content or tools or information. We have different workforces and needs to cater to. So picking groups who were really, keen to be front runners and test things out, and then to share that, was a much better way to come at some of this. We didn't go with a cookie cutter approach in many cases, other than I think our general comms layer was to everyone, but we gave freedom to make it more relevant to the context, like a retail environment as an example. So I think that's really important for people to think about. A couple of other key things that we did. So we made available psychologist support to our people, and the reason we did that was we knew in New Zealand the wait lists for seeing a psychologist or a mental health expert the wait times are long, and with our EAP service we were about to review that. So we went, actually, here's a psychotherapist and psychologist. You can go directly to these people. We'll fund, 3 sessions a year should you need it. And that's had a huge uptake. So we've had, I would say, over the last 2 years, more than 400 of our people have utilised that.
Wow.
And that's over and above the EAP offering. And what is great about that is, they're off the wait list, but also they're partners of ours who do have the context of Spark. And we don't hear we don't hear any information back. However, people know that care and support is there.
Yeah. Now, I know that's what else has been working, because you've been busy. I know you've been busy.
We have. The other key thing, and again, this was back to mind health and building a culture where there is more support, and it was training up our own people as mahi-tahi coaches. So we didn't want that to be just do a first aid course for a day on mental health. It was how do we build, skills and resilience in a group of our people to then champion some of our mahi-tahi framework. And we've trained up 2 cohorts over the last 3 years now, and we have just over 40 trained mahi-tahi coaches. They have, they've been an awesome addition, and people who've been willing to learn with us going on this journey.
What kind of training, what kind of skills, what kind of training are they doing?
So with our partner psychologists, we actually asked them to design a program to train them. So it's ranged from building their own sort of wellbeing, how to support people with mental health challenges and get them the support or information that they need. Noticing things that aren't right with people or with teams, and giving them some really simple tools to share with people that they're working alongside. So those coaches have also gone and evolved their own offerings and tools. So things like, how do I help a leader have a conversation about mind health? They've developed a really short module to go and share with leaders when they notice there's an opportunity to do that.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, or just to go and talk and promote some of the offerings that we have to teams. And so that's really evolved itself. It's been a really powerful and amazing thing to see, because it's a really diverse group of our people. They have shared with us many times, this has made a huge impact for me personally in terms of how I look at supporting my family, my friends, but also they've been able to get people help people in the moment, which more often than not we've found they haven't had to refer someone on to a service. They've been able to go, hey, I'm here to listen and just hear what is going on for you. And it's been really powerful.
I think that's really interesting that a lot of times people don't need a referral, that it's the getting, being listened to, feeling supported. What kind of feedback have you had from your people about it?
What kind of feedback we've had? I think the biggest impact has been people are more aware of the range of support that is available to them. There is a more inclusive approach as well, because not everyone reads emails and interprets information the same way. So they feel like that care culture shows up in a every day, every way kind of approach. And
about that, I think this is something really important. Every day, every way.
Yeah. So there
isn't just one way of doing something and rolling it out.
Yeah. And I think that community-led movement has been a really important, part of building a system. So, while we've focused a lot on our leaders playing a sponsor role here, just as important as our people being able to connect and share knowledge and, build a culture where, wellbeing is part of how we work. And it's very much, I think our people have made that shift, way more impactful by being part of that journey. It can't be just a leader-led initiative if your colleagues don't,
Yeah, completely. What kind of things have enabled or sustained the kind of community-led aspect of this?
Sustained. I think we've continued to invest and recognise and support that. So we've invested in people with knowledge and skills. They feel like it's given them a whole new skill set, which is awesome. I think when we offered some of the coaches this opportunity, they felt like it was like having a new role, and it's not a new role; it's a volunteer, hat that they put on. And we've made a point continuously of recognising when, it's really counted a lot. We do have a lot of stories of, where people have helped, as an example, during times of loss and grief in the workplace, our coaches have been better equipped to help navigate those kinds of things, which can be very awkward for teams. And that's really counted a lot for people. So we don't make those things go unnoticed.
Yeah, so it's that acknowledgement and recognition and ongoing investment. And I know inclusion has been really important for you. Tell me a little bit about, and Spark's a big organization. You're about, 5,000 people. What have you been doing for inclusion and why?
Yeah, so what we have, we've been on a huge journey with inclusion from before, when I was at Spark. And this has been, a community movement where I think it was born from a similar thing. We listened to our people. We heard that there were opportunities to build a more inclusive work environment. And again, I wasn't here then, but we developed a initiative called Blue Heart, which was an opportunity again to set an expectation about how we do things at Spark, that we want people to bring their full selves to work, and that we all have a role to play in that. So that was leader down, but also our people made their own pledges and commitments to building an inclusive work environment. And over time, what we realised is, wellbeing is very much part of that movement. So they're not separate initiatives. That the approach and the ethos that we have is very much the same. It's about, partnering with our people, listening, and then, meeting them with the support in our culture. And it's sort of like a way of how we work now. And it's been a very powerful movement because when people join, they're very clear about what we stand for. It's easy to understand. I think that's a really key point for us. And it's something that we do weave into ways of working, tribe ceremonies, how we open things, what we celebrate here. And it has a really big focus from, again, leadership.
I like that, though, that the weaving in, that it becomes part of culture and how you do things. And what would you say has been the biggest learning in all of this work over the past 12 or 18 months?
It's many things I could come at from that. Biggest learning.
And you can go biggest learning thing we're most proud of. You can go either, know, because sometimes we think with learning, we can learn from good stuff as well as the stuff that doesn't go well. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Look, I really do think this is about weaving into your culture, how you do things. And the sponsorship from leadership is so key to this. Those two things have been important to hold on to for the sustainability of the work.
Yeah.
Because without those things, you're really just rolling out an initiative that won't last when, people move on, organizations evolve. But if it's woven into how we do things, then that's, that can last beyond, a moment in time, I think.
Yeah. So it's about the system, doing the stuff that really is enabling the sustainability. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Thank you. And what's on the agenda for 2024?
Yes. 2024, what I think specifically around evolving wellbeing and building this, culture of innovation, we're going to go back and focus a lot on investing in our leadership layer, to fuel them. So we have around 600 leaders. How do we ensure that they're all equipped with not only wellbeing and DEI sort of tools and information, but, how do I help my people to grow? How do I set some really good standards and direct people into the future? We think that's a really, it's time, and I know a lot of organizations are doing the same thing, time to focus there, because a lot of new leaders have joined the organisation as well. In terms of specifically around wellbeing, we have a really strong, I think, foundation and a level of awareness across our Spark group. We now also have a lot of access to data. So we have questions woven into our culture surveys. We have a partnership with Clearhead, which is an app-based platform. And all of those systems and tools give us, some rich insight to be more targeted in where we might focus our efforts. So specifically around wellbeing, as an example, we may choose to focus on a particular part of our business and help them, if there are challenges, or some of those themes emerging, might cater to specific groups like families struggling with care, as an example. So we're able to get a lot more targeted in our support, but also just to continue building wellbeing into our broader strategy around, health, safety, wellbeing, like building a work environment where, we're all coming to work and it's a healthy and safe environment for everyone. Wellbeing's very much a part of that. So it's about weaving it further into our strategy.
And I was going to ask you about the skills you most want to develop in leaders, and you've actually just listed them. And so supporting wellbeing in themselves and others, DEI, helping their people to grow. And I guess this is part of how do they become the kind of leaders that are leading a culture where you can innovate.
Yeah.
Are there other... Yeah, go on.
I think building adaptive leaders would be the real outcome that we want to drive. So how do we be adaptive in this environment and build people up to feel more equipped to do that? How do I think as a system across, my team and the enterprise? And how do I just do the basics really well and feel confident in that? So I think if we have more of our leaders going, I've got those things down, that would fuel a lot of, an even better place to work.
It's got to be, and when people feel my leader's got this, there's a level of, calm, trust, commitment that comes with that. What are your people telling you is most important to them?
I think one of the biggest things for any organisation at the moment is around the cost of living and financial pressures. I don't think anyone could go through the year and say that's not a big, challenge. And then I think energy, managing workload, that is also another strong theme that has emerged for our people.
Yeah. I've spoken to you about Annalise Roach, the New Zealand model of wellbeing that she has just developed from listening to lay people's understanding of wellbeing. And it's a beautiful model. I'll send you a link. But one of the things that features in it is material security. And it's a New Zealand model. It acknowledges connection to land and wairua, but it's also saying, this is, when you speak to thousands of lay people, they say, purpose is important. Animals come out as being really important, but also material security. And it's like, why have traditional wellbeing models not spoken to this? But it is part of it.
Absolutely. I think something that we have paid particular attention to this year is through our listening tools, that has emerged as a strong theme, and we've gone, how do we respond to that challenge as a large employer the best way we can, recognizing that the sort of net promoter score around pay and cost of living is typically quite low in organisations. So we've managed to shift that, I think 10 points through our culture survey this year, which, you always want that to be higher, but, that is very much coming back to what are people really, what's really on their minds and keeping them up at night. And that is a thing that you can't overlook. You can put all the wellbeing tools in front of people, but we do need to be able to listen and respond to what is top of mind.
And I know other organisations have talked about they've been giving financial wellbeing webinars and things like that. Is that the kind of thing you might plan on doing there?
It's been an interesting one, this. We did pilot an offering with one of our partners briefly, and it didn't have a high uptake. And we went, okay, well, we're okay with that. And so we hit pause on rolling out a generic offering. I think the way we've looked at this is, how do we go back to what we can do as an employer, and look at pay and look at being very clear about how we can support our people. And looking ahead, we may explore that. I just think that giving more holistic support has been, has had a higher uptake. So people have choice. And through our offering like Clearhead, within that system, there would be the opportunity to book certain kinds of specialists or access knowledge. But I do think that a much more cohesive response is, how do we as an employer come at things like financial wellbeing from looking at pay.
What are the pay and benefits that we're providing? So actually the pointy end, rather, because I think sometimes if you asked me, do you want to go to a financial wellbeing webinar, or would you like me to talk to you about how we could give you increased pay and benefits? I know which one I'd want. Yeah. And so just as we kind of come to an end, I wanted to just check in with you around, well, two things. One is the changes that you've been making. Are you seeing impact come through in attracting people, engaging people, or retaining people? Is it making a difference in that way, or is it possible to tell?
Yeah. One of the things that we took a look at was the correlation between that wellbeing question and our engagement score. And we saw a high correlation between that question. Yeah. And over time, the wellbeing score has improved and our engagement score has steadily increased. So that's been something that we're really proud to celebrate. And we have seen more people feeling, more on their game, which is the place we want people to be ideally over time. So that's really fantastic. And in terms of benefits, it's certainly something we promote when we're attracting talent into the organisation. It's something that we understand to be, it's relatively well known in the industry. People do reach out to us for information about what we're doing quite a lot. So, we've got strong awareness. But for our people, it's certainly showing up in terms of what we're measuring.
Mm. And in thinking sort of forward for the next 12 to 18 months, most organizations are having conversations around ESG, sort of environment, social and governance. There's stuff around sustainability. Are these conversations that are happening at Spark, and where does that kind of discussion sit?
Yeah, absolutely they are. We do have ESG team which works closely with us and all functions of our business. Wellbeing, we think should sit across all of the work we do. We didn't feel it should fit in one function, but it's very much connected to how we work. And it has a huge focus. So over time, I don't see that decreasing. It has a focus from the board and leadership sponsorship.
What are you most proud of in this year in terms of what you and the People and Culture team have achieved at Spark? What's been your highlight?
If I come back to the wellbeing specifically, we have been responsive with some really compelling support and offerings when people have needed it the most. There has been loss, there has been all kinds of uncertainty, and we're able to be there with, hey, here's how we can help. And it's not just a generic response, it's personalized, it's it has a lot of depth and authenticity to it. So that's really cool.
It's really about you were able to demonstrate that you are a caring employer and be there in a way that is meaningful and supportive when people need it. That's quite something to be proud of, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing such powerful and practical insights and for reminding us what it truly means to show up for your people.
Thank you. It's great to reflect on those questions.
You've been listening to Making Work Better, recorded for ORFM Dunedin. To learn more about how you can make work better for yourself, your team, or your workplace, keep listening to this series and go to nziwr.co.nz to download your free copy of the Making Work Better report. Thanks for listening today. If you've enjoyed the show, please rate the podcast to help others who might benefit from it find it more easily.
This podcast was produced by ORFM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.